Once, people bowed before kings. Today, we double tap on their digital descendants. The faces have changed, but the instinct hasn't. Because the same psychology that made people worship kings now makes you worship celebrities. Think about it. We live in an age that prides itself on freedom, on equality, on breaking chains and dismantling hierarchies. We mock the peasants who knelt before monarchs, who believed in divine right, who thought some humans were simply born superior. We call ourselves enlightened, progressive, liberated, and yet every day millions of us wake up and immediately check what our modern royalty is doing. We scroll through their lives, we memorize their opinions, we defend them in comment sections like loyal subjects defending the crown. We buy what they sell, wear what they wear, echo what they say. The thrones are gone, but the kneeling continues. This isn't a story about celebrities, it's a story about us. About a pattern woven so deeply into human psychology that we can't see it even as we act it out. It's about why we keep creating idols, why we need them, and what it costs us to worship at their feet. The central paradox of modern culture is this. We claim to have abolished hierarchy, yet we're addicted to admiration. We say we're all equal, yet we can't stop elevating some and diminishing ourselves in the process. So the question isn't why celebrities exist. The question is, why do we need them to? To understand why we worship celebrities, we have to go back, way back, to a time when worship wasn't a choice, but a strategy for survival. Imagine you're living 10,000 years ago. No cities, no laws, no systems. Just tribes scattered across hostile landscapes, competing for resources, vulnerable to nature's violence and each other's aggression. In this world, hierarchy wasn't optional, it was essential. Leaders emerged not just because they were strong, but because they organized chaos. They made decisions when the group was paralyzed. They negotiated peace when conflict threatened to destroy everyone. They became the center that held things together. And here's where it gets interesting. These leaders didn't just command respect, they became objects of reverence. They weren't just followed, they were elevated, idealized, projected upon. Early humans began to see their leaders as more than human. Kings were chosen by gods. Pharaohs were gods themselves. Emperors held the mandate of heaven. This wasn't stupidity. It was psychological engineering. When you believe your leader has divine backing, you don't question them as easily. You feel protected, not just by their decisions, but by the cosmic order they represent. The king becomes a symbol of stability in a world of chaos. And symbols are powerful because they simplify fear. We didn't worship kings because they ruled us. We worshiped them because they made chaos feel smaller. The human brain is wired to seek patterns, to create order, to find meaning in randomness. And one of the most powerful patterns we created was this. Some people are special. Some people stand above. Some people deserve our devotion. It was never really about the king. It was about what the king represented. Certainty in an uncertain world. Worship became a way to feel safe. If the most powerful person is divinely ordained, then maybe there's a plan. Maybe we're not just floating in chaos. Maybe someone is in control. And when that psychological need is met, questioning it feels dangerous. Like pulling the thread that unravels everything. So we didn't pull it. We bowed. We built temples. We wrote hymns. We told stories that reinforced the hierarchy. Because the alternative, a world without clear order, was too terrifying to contemplate. For thousands of years, this system worked. Not because it was true, but because it was useful. Worship kept society stable, belief kept people unified. The throne became the anchor of civilization. But then something happened. Revolutions came. Monarchies fell. Democracy spread. The divine right of kings was exposed as a comforting fiction. The thrones were dismantled. The crowns melted down. The palaces turned into museums. And everyone assumed that meant the end of worship. When the thrones fell, the instinct didn't die. It just looked for a new stage. The 20th century changed everything. Not because it killed monarchy, but because it invented something more powerful. Mass media. Film arrived first. Suddenly faces could be projected larger than life, more beautiful than reality, frozen in eternal youth. These weren't local leaders or distant royals. These were gods you could see every week, whose lives you could follow, whose perfection was undeniable because it was right there on screen. Then came radio, bringing voices into homes. Then television, bringing entire lives into living rooms. And with each new medium, the machinery of fame grew more sophisticated. The camera became the crown, the spotlight the throne, and fame, once the exclusive privilege of the powerful, became something that could be manufactured. You didn't need to be born into royalty anymore. You needed the right face, the right story, the right moment. Fame was democratized, but worship wasn't. We simply transferred our devotion from inherited power to manufactured visibility. And here's what made celebrities different from kings. They felt accessible. Kings were distant, untouchable, hidden behind palace walls. But celebrities? You saw them constantly, in magazines, on screens. They smiled at you. They seemed to speak directly to you. They shared their struggles, their loves, their opinions. They became accessible monarchs, admired and envied and consumed in equal measure. If you're starting to see the pattern, hit that like button, because this goes deeper than you think. The machinery that created celebrities was brilliant in its simplicity. Studios manufactured not just films, but personas. Publicity departments crafted not just careers, but mythologies. Every star had an origin story, a carefully managed image, a narrative that made them seem both extraordinary and relatable. Clark Gable wasn't just an actor, he was the king of Hollywood. Marilyn Monroe wasn't just a performer, she was a symbol of desire itself. James Dean became eternal youth, forever frozen at 24. These weren't people anymore. They were archetypes, icons, modern myths projected onto human frames. And we ate it up, because the divine right of kings became the divine algorithm of attention. The formula was simple. Visibility equals importance. Constant exposure equals inevitability. If you see someone enough, your brain starts to believe they matter. Not because of what they do, but because they're everywhere. This was the birth of celebrity as we know it. Not fame for achievement, but fame for being famous. Not elevation through accomplishment, but elevation through repetition. And the subjects? They didn't vanish. They started scrolling. Now, let's talk about why this works. Why we can't seem to stop elevating others even when we know, rationally, that celebrities are just people. The answer is in your brain. Neuropsychology has shown us something fascinating. When we see someone we admire succeed, our brain's reward system activates. The same areas that light up when we achieve something ourselves light up when someone we identify with achieves something. This is the work of mirror neurons, cells that fire both when we perform an action and when we watch someone else perform it. They're the reason we wince when someone gets hurt on screen, why we feel joy when our team wins, why we cry at fictional stories. And they're the reason celebrity worship feels so real. When we follow a celebrity, our brains don't fully distinguish between knowing them and actually being connected to them. We feel their success as if it's partially ours. We experience their validation as if we're being validated. Their status elevates our own, at least in the story our brain tells itself. This isn't weakness, it's biology. Humans are social creatures. For most of our history, our survival depended on our position in social hierarchies. Being connected to powerful people meant protection, resources, opportunities. Our brains evolved to constantly monitor status, both ours and others. So when we align ourselves with celebrities, when we defend them, when we feel personally invested in their success, we're activating ancient circuitry designed for social survival. We worship to feel connected to status, and that connection, however illusory, feels like safety. This is also why parasocial relationships feel so intense. These are one-sided relationships where you feel you know someone who doesn't know you exist. You follow their daily lives. You understand their struggles. You feel connected to them. And your brain, which evolved in small tribes where everyone knew everyone, treats this as a real relationship. It releases the same neurochemicals, creates the same emotional bonds, triggers the same loyalty responses. We know them, they'll never know us. Yet it feels real. Because to your ancient brain, it is real. The fact that the connection only goes one direction doesn't matter to the parts of your mind that evolved before mass media existed. We used to build temples for kings, now we build them in our phones. Every photo saved, every post shared, every hour spent scrolling through their content. These are modern devotional practices, rituals of worship performed not in cathedrals, but in bed before sleep, on commutes, during lunch breaks. The altar is pocket-sized, but the reverence is the same. And just like ancient worship, modern idolization shapes how we see ourselves. When you spend hours consuming the curated highlights of someone else's life, your brain doesn't process it as fiction. It processes it as reality, as a standard to measure yourself against. This is where the psychological cost begins.
Social media changed everything about celebrity worship. It didn't just amplify it, it made it feel
personal. Before Instagram, before Twitter, before TikTok, celebrities were distant. You saw them in magazines, on TV, in films, but there was clear separation. You knew you were watching a performance, consuming content created by teams of professionals. Social media destroyed that distance. Now celebrities post from their beds. They share their coffee. They film themselves without makeup. They reply to comments. They do Q&As. They let you into their homes, their thoughts, their daily routines. And it creates the most powerful illusion of all, intimacy. You feel like you know them, really know them. Not the public persona, but the real person. Because you see them in moments that feel unfiltered, unscripted, authentic. But here's the truth. It's engineered intimacy. It's emotional manipulation through constant exposure. Every post is carefully considered, even the ones that seem spontaneous. Every candid photo has been reviewed. Every vulnerable moment has been calculated for maximum engagement. The machinery of celebrity hasn't disappeared, it's just become invisible. And it works brilliantly. The same way kings use ceremonies to stay visible, to remind subjects of their power and legitimacy, celebrities use posts to stay relevant. Every update is a reminder that they exist, that they're thinking of you, that you matter to them. Every post is a coronation, and every like is a bow. Think about that. Every time you engage, you're participating in a ritual of validation. You're telling them they matter. You're confirming their status. You're bowing before the digital throne. And the algorithms know this. They're designed to maximize these interactions, to create feedback loops of engagement. The more you interact, the more you see. The more you see, the more real the connection feels. The more real it feels, the more you interact. It's a perfect system for creating devotion. Kings ruled by divine right. Celebrities rule by divine reach. But here's what makes modern worship more insidious than ancient monarchy. Kings were obviously above you. The hierarchy was visible, acknowledged, built into the social structure. You knew you were a subject. With celebrities, we pretend we're equals. We tell ourselves we're just fans, just followers, just interested observers. The hierarchy is hidden behind the language of friendship and community. We don't think we're kneeling because the throne looks like a phone screen and the crown looks like a verification checkmark. And yet the crowd doesn't see itself kneeling. There's a cost to all this devotion, a price paid not in money, but in selfhood. Excessive admiration leads to something psychologists call upward social comparison. You constantly measure yourself against people who are by design unreachable. They have resources you don't, teams you don't, genetics you don't. And even their struggles are packaged in ways that make them seem noble rather than ordinary. This creates a psychological trap. The more you worship, the smaller you feel. The more time you spend consuming someone else's carefully curated existence, the more inadequate your own life seems. Your achievements feel insignificant. Your appearance feels flawed. Your daily life feels boring. Studies have consistently shown that heavy social media use correlates with increased depression and anxiety. And the mechanism is clear. Constant exposure to idealized versions of others makes you feel inferior. This is the same psychological effect as royal envy, but worse. At least with kings, the distance was obvious. You were born a peasant, the king was born royal. The hierarchy was fixed, and there was a strange comfort in that permanence. But celebrities feel reachable. They came from nowhere, they tell you. They were just like you, they insist. And that makes your failure to reach their heights feel like personal failure rather than structural reality. We stop being citizens. We become spectators. This might be the deepest cost. When you spend hours each day consuming other people's lives, you have less time and energy for your own. Your dreams get replaced by their achievements. Your creativity gets drowned by their content. Your identity gets defined by what you follow rather than what you create. The more we watch, the less we live. And there's an addictive quality to it. Just like ancient subjects found meaning in serving their king, modern followers find meaning in supporting their celebrities. It gives you something to care about, something to discuss, a community of fellow devotees. But it's borrowed meaning, reflected glory. You're living vicariously through someone else's existence, and every hour spent doing that is an hour not spent building your own. The price of worship has always been your individuality. When you idolize someone, you give them power over your emotions, your self-worth, your attention. You make their opinions matter more than your own. You shape yourself to fit into their narrative rather than creating your own. This isn't conscious. You don't wake up and decide to diminish yourself. It happens slowly, through 1,000 small moments of comparison, of engagement, of consumption. And the tragedy is that the people you're worshiping often don't want it. Many celebrities speak openly about the burden of being idealized, of having millions of people project their hopes and dreams onto them, of being unable to be human because they've been turned into symbols. The worship hurts everyone. The worshipped lose their humanity. The worshipers lose their agency. But the system continues because it's profitable, because it's addictive, because it's familiar, because we've been doing it for 10,000 years. Let's talk about what happens when the crowd gets power. In ancient monarchies, the king held absolute authority, but there was always a crowd watching, the court, the nobles, the subjects. And while they couldn't directly challenge the throne, their collective opinion mattered. A king who lost the crowd lost legitimacy. Today, we've inverted the structure. Celebrities have visibility, but not sovereignty. They reign only as long as the crowd allows it. And the crowd has become more powerful than any medieval mob could imagine. The crowd has replaced the court. Public opinion is the new royal decree. Social media gave the masses something they never had before. A voice that reaches as far as any celebrities. A single viral tweet can topple a career. A coordinated campaign can destroy a reputation. The crowd can elevate nobodies to fame overnight, and just as quickly, cast them down. This is cancel culture, but let's see it for what it really is. Public execution by mass approval. In medieval times, the crowd gathered in squares to watch executions, to participate in the spectacle of justice. The condemned were paraded before everyone, their humiliation made public, their fall from grace turned into entertainment. We do the same thing now, just digitally. When someone falls out of favor, we don't look away. We lean in. We share the posts. We add our condemnation. We participate in the ritual humiliation. And there's the same moral satisfaction, the same sense of righteousness, the same thrill of being part of something bigger than yourself. Fame and humiliation are now currencies of power. To have fame is to have value in our attention economy. To be humiliated publicly is to lose that value instantly. And the crowd has discovered that it can grant and revoke fame at will. The throne has gone digital, but the rituals are the same. We still have coronations, going viral, hitting verification, reaching milestones. We still have scandals, leaked messages, exposed lies, moral failures. We still have executions, mass unfollowing, trending hashtags, permanent reputational damage. The technology is new. The psychology is ancient. And here's what's terrifying. The speed has increased, but the thoughtfulness hasn't. In medieval times, there were processes, however flawed, investigations, trials, time for reason to cool passion. Now, judgment happens in hours. The crowd forms instantly, fueled by algorithms designed to amplify outrage. Guilt is assumed. Context is ignored. Rehabilitation is impossible. In the digital empire, the guillotine is a comment section. And just like historical mobs, we tell ourselves we're serving justice. We're holding the powerful accountable. We're speaking truth to power. Sometimes we are. Sometimes the crowd is right. And someone who abused their platform deserves to lose it. But often, we're just performing the same ancient ritual, finding someone to elevate, then finding reasons to tear them down, building thrones so we can eventually topple them. Because that's what crowds do. That's what they've always done. If this is making you think differently about your relationship with social media and celebrity culture, subscribe, because understanding this pattern is the first step to breaking it. So here we are, 25 minutes into a conversation about celebrity worship, and really we've been talking about something much deeper. We've been talking about human nature. The human mind never stopped worshiping. It just found new idols to project perfection onto. We didn't evolve out of the need for hierarchy. We didn't transcend the impulse to elevate some and diminish others. We didn't become enlightened beings who see everyone as equal. We just changed the aesthetics of worship and told ourselves we'd changed the substance. But the pattern remains. We still create gods. We still build temples. We still perform rituals of devotion. We still sacrifice our individuality on the altar of admiration. The thrones are made of algorithms now instead of gold. The crowns are made of attention instead of jewels. The subjects carry their altars in their pockets. But the psychology is identical. We don't follow kings because we need rulers. We follow them because we fear being ordinary. There it is. The truth beneath the pattern. Idolization is about us, not them. It's about our terror of insignificance, our hunger for meaning, our desperate need to believe that someone, somewhere, has figured it out. If we can elevate someone to perfection, we can believe perfection is possible. If we can worship greatness, we can feel connected to it. If we can make someone larger than life, we can give our own lives context and scale. The celebrity doesn't need to be perfect. They just need to be a screen we can project our hopes onto. And in every like, every obsession, every scroll, we build a new throne for someone else to sit on. This is the cycle. We elevate. We worship. We feel both connected and inferior. We consume until consumption becomes identity. And then, inevitably, we turn on them. Because no human can sustain the weight of being a symbol. They fall, we feel betrayed. And then we find someone new to elevate. The throne might be empty for a moment, but never for long. Because we need it. Not because celebrities are special, but because worshiping them is easier than building ourselves. It's easier to watch someone else's life than to improve your own. It's easier to follow someone else's journey than to chart your own path. It's easier to find meaning in their success than to define your own. Worship is, and has always been, a way to avoid the hard work of becoming. But here's the paradox. The people we worship most are usually the ones who refused to worship others. They didn't spend their time consuming, they spent it creating. They didn't find themselves through following, they found themselves through doing. The path to becoming someone worth admiring is to stop admiring others and start building yourself. Not to become a celebrity, not to seek worship, but to reclaim the energy you've been spending on others and invest it in your own growth, your own creativity, your own life. The age of kings never ended, it just got Wi-Fi. But you can end it for yourself. You can dismantle the throne in your pocket. You can stop bowing. You can redirect your devotion from their lives to your own. Not out of arrogance, but out of recognition. You have one life, and spending it as a spectator in someone else's story is the greatest waste of the gift you've been given. The kings didn't free their subjects. The subjects freed themselves by realizing the king was just a person, and the throne was just a chair. You can have that realization right now. The people you worship are just people. The platforms you bow to are just code. The hierarchy you accept is just a story. And stories can be rewritten. The question is, will you rewrite yours? If you're watching this from a country that once had kings, comment where you're watching from. Because the crowns are gone, but the worship never stopped. Let's start a conversation about how this pattern shows up in your culture. And if this video changed how you think about celebrity worship and social media, share it with someone who needs to hear this. The algorithm rewards worship, so let's use it to spread awareness instead. The throne is waiting, but this time, maybe you don't need to build it.